It's a simulation, SI. That's why they always tell you put your signature down, write it in cursive, because now you're signing a simulation to an adverb-verb contract, and you're participating in the fraud by your own simulation. Now, I don't know if you guys have to sign your tax forms here in Australia, but isn't it in a box, just like ours are in the United States? Yep. So you're the only, this is, the taxation program worldwide is you have to give them something, and a signed receipt that says you're giving it to them, but they don't give you a receipt back or any evidence that you paid. They just kind of leave you alone if you participate. So I'm telling everybody, for those that are government agents, if you're here, that pay your taxes with the correct sentence structure, communication, syntax. And pay your taxes because you're not smart enough not to. And the IRS came back to me and says, you're a tax protester. You're telling everybody to pay your taxes with the correct sentence structure, communication, syntax. I'm going, yeah, and how does that make me a protester? He says, because we don't have any correct sentence structure. I said, oh, you just confessed to that you have a lie. And I'm telling you to be correct, and you're confessing to me that you're a liar. That you're extorting money through a lie. And this is right? Well, you're not going to arrest us, are you? So, now the reason we bring this up, we start every sentence with for because we found that it was the strongest preposition to start a sentence because it takes you into an argument, or takes you into the facts. Of was then used as the for of the effect. We only have two prepositional phrases in front of the verb. And is and are your verbs. I write so fast I don't put the words in. Okay, with the claim, after you have an action of thinking, you have to have a possession. Over here, when you have knowledge, you're human beings. You have a brain. You see things. You witness. And you store information in your brain, just like the computer holds it. But until you hit the execution button to take the information out and move it into sense, you're claiming one thing in your computer. Your brain functions on the same way. You store information from your world experiences, and then you move it through thinking, and you make a claim, which is possessive of that one, of all this knowledge that you've stored up in your head. Then you have to define whether or not that claim, the possessive knowledge that you've claimed, is a plus or minus. Or are you looking for a reward or a damage? Then you have to define how that contract is going to be argued or put to what these terms are. And that's where the whole program comes in, where you're creating this contract. And then somebody has to take responsibility for that sentence. So if you write it backwards, and when you write backwards, this here becomes, these are all separate facts. These stay the same. For the author of the contract, or correct sentence structure, communication, syntax, language, contract, then you would bring your is down with the terms, plus or minus, of the claim, with the facts, by the claimant's knowledge. Backwards, it says the same thing. And I'm using the opposite prepositions for each one of these words, but each one of these stay the same. With the contract by the author, or with the author by the contract. For the writing of the checks, for the driving of the car of the driving. For the checks by the author. See, frontwards and backwards, there are conditions which are paired, cause and effect, that always stay together. So when you read the sentence backwards, you keep these things together. Now, leaving it as it is, technically you can remove any of these nouns. These are your nouns. Author, contract, terms, claim, fact, and claimant's knowledge. You can put those any place, move all the terms around, and the sentence will still mean the same thing. So there's 6 different ways you can write this sentence forwards, and 6 different ways you can write it backwards, and it will still say the same thing. If you can't obstruct the meaning of something, it is what it is. And that's the unique thing that I can prove when I write my lawsuits. And if you can write the sentence backwards and it means the same thing as you wrote it frontwards, now you know you did it correctly.
David, before you go, if I can ask a question, just a couple of people asked me a couple of different things and you might be able to enlighten them.
Sure.
They're wondering how you can make the claims that you make regarding the Universal Postal Union.
Sure.
And if they were going to research that, where they would look to find the information that you have that the Universal Postal Union controls the planet.
Oh, Universal Postal Union was established in 1873 by using a 2-cent postage stamp. All 250 countries treated with the Universal Postal Union, Bern, Switzerland, to transport vessels between transport letters between point A and point B. But when they wrote the treaty up, it was to transport vessels. Everybody in this room is a vessel. All cargo is a vessel. Everything that moved then under a 2-cent postage stamp fell under this jurisdiction. Now, think about 1873. How efficient were we at moving things around? Well, we had steam was just first coming in, so transportation was highly limited. The amount of commerce that was going to flow between one country and the other was very limited, and all they had to do was wait for 1 year until everybody on the planet signed up. As soon as everybody was under contract, jack up the rates. Now that they gave them jurisdiction, they were in charge of vessels. All vessels have to move under commerce, and all commerce is called script, better known as money. In order to get the money, paper money, you have to file bankruptcy, give up your gold, your silver, and take paper. Paper was more convenient to move back and forth. Or have contracts, better known as checks, money orders, which are all controlled by the post office. So this is how they got their fingers into every pie on the planet and became the central bank. Through the post office controls all banking. Benjamin Franklin of the United States, when the Continental Congress got together, Ben was a French attorney working for the English crown to capture America. 1775, he sits back and says, hey, I'll be responsible for contracts and script. He writes the contracts in adverb verb, and he takes control of the money. Walks the United States into a bankruptcy and turns it over back to England. Yeah, we win the war, but we lose it on paper. And we're in bankruptcy with England for 210 years, and they're in control. If you go to the upu.com website, you'll have about 80 pages of reading on the history of the Universal Postal Union, and it'll explain how they came about. And it's all public record. Wikipedia is another one where you can go on to and look up things. You can get, well, you guys wouldn't have the privilege, but I got to have the privilege of going into the 5th basement below the Pennsylvania Historical Library and getting into archive books that were 200-300 years old in controlled environments, and having the power to syntax all the old 200-300-year-old scripts and then put the missing words in to tell me secrets that nobody knew about. And I accumulate all this information, whether it be postal, congressional, government, metallurgy, science, nuclear. I study all that stuff. I'm an information junkie, and I cross-reference things. When I get into seminars, I meet people, and I got people that are in all these different branches of government worldwide. And every now and then somebody finds a little secret out, and they call me up and say, hey, Dave, I know the secret. What does it mean? We exchange information. I go someplace else, and I get another piece of information, another piece of information, another piece. Collectively, you create a storyline of who's in charge and what's happening. There's one thing, liars figure, but figures don't lie. And the mathematical interface unlocks this, and when I can write the sentence frontwards and backwards, and it shows the absolute proof of what's happening, and it's the same worldwide, I have my proof. Somebody says, show me the law that says a vowel and 2 consonants means no contract. Look up every word in the English language, it'll prove itself. It isn't where there's a written law to that effect. It's just that the word no is a negative condition of state. Without, under, un, or de, or ab, all your prefixes, all negative conditions of state. If you have anything that is negative, you can't create it. It's a negative contract. If you put no in front of any word that's a fact, why would you put no in front of a fact? It's a no fact. Therefore, you have a no person. What is a no person? Every law in America and here in Australia says no person shall. No is an adverb making person to be a verb, and shall is an adverb in future time, which means you don't exist in now time, and at the same time they all called you guys no persons, which means you're not corporations, because what do you have to have a corporation? 2 or more people in a quantum contract on a single piece of paper. And if it's written in adverb verb, you don't have a contract, therefore you're not a person. You're all individual sovereigns, because there's no contract to tie you with anything except your presumptuous or illusionary opinion. And if you are not a fact and you are a sovereign means one. One is not corporate, and one is a nude person in the middle of the ocean, part of the food chain. Have fun trying to get to the grocery store to buy your groceries before you get eaten by the sharks. And the sharks are everywhere. Because if you're weak, society says that the strong will always harvest the weak, and the 3% will always manage the 97%. Because they're weaker in mind than the 3% that are in control.
Can I get you to clarify that statement of no person shall? Are you trying to say that such a contract or such a command, whether it be an act or law, it's talking about something other than a sovereign, something other than a human being? It's specifically discussing a dead entity. So the law is for a dead entity. Or the
Aren't you a dead entity on your driver's license? Aren't you capitalized as a nom de guerre?
Well, I have no proof of that. I only know what I've been told, and I have done some research to find out whether capital letters means that there's a dead entity. I haven't found anywhere written where a confirmation of that.
Go down to your local cemetery. Every name on the tombstones is capitalized. Ask the cemetery or go to a funeral home and ask the funeral home director, what does it mean to be capitalized? He says you're a dead person.
Can you give me something other than the
And if you're
cemetery?
a dead person, you're a no person. And if you're a no person, you have constitutional rights.
Is that written anywhere, that capitals equals a dead entity?
Yeah, nom de guerre.
Okay.
Capitalists didn't negotiate maximum.
Look up under Styles Manual, capitalized names,
Thank
dead
you.
corporations. Chapter 1, Title 1, Paragraph 1 of the United States of all maritime codes, all vessels must have capitalized names. First rule of contract is closure. You must give closure for your contract. And what is closure? It's the least common denominator of 1. You can only have one jurisdiction, one term of communications between 2 people. You can't have 2 ideas. That's closure. And once you have closure, and 2 people agree on closure, you have contract of 1. You see, 5 plus 5 equals 9. I thought I'd get you on that one too. Oh, I'm sorry. I write too fast sometimes. Dead corporation. Which is paper, which is person. Okay. Okay. Mathematics. Better known as the quadrahedron. Smallest of all geometrical shapes has a 4-sided pyramid, correct? The object within the center of that pyramid is point number 5. If you take 2 objects with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. 5 plus 5 equals 9, better known as tetrahedron, or the Star of David. And who's in charge of contract and banking? The Jewish religion, who uses Star of David as their symbol, which is contract. I offered, you accepted, we have a compliance of 1 tetrahedron with 9 points of reference. Because 2 objects can't occupy the same place at the same time, therefore when a husband and wife get married, they become one person under the law. Right? And no matter what happens to one, the other one gets it.
You lost me.
I did? Are you married? Everybody that's married is laughing.
They've got it.
Yeah, that's on the record. Okay, what's your question?
The question is, how do you get 5 plus 5 equal 9 with
I
a,
just explained it to you.
with a
It's
double?
geometry. 2 objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. What is a piece of paper? It's corporate. Isn't there only one sheet of paper in my hand?
Yes, you're holding a piece of paper.
Okay. And the 2 people that came together on this are called the United, or 3 people, I got 3 witnesses on here called the United States. These
Right.
3 people joined together on one sheet of paper for one idea.
Right.
Their 3 ideas form one contract.
Right.
It's one contract, not 3 contracts, but one. It's unity. It's the United States of the claim of the life.
It's a simple enough concept.
And because the claim of the life has a stamp endorsed, name of flag, to advertise the terms of the contract under law of the flag, an endorsement on the back of the document becomes a negotiable instrument, and the terminology written here in 4 paragraphs, or 4 sentences, articulate in now time, prepositional phrase, order of operations that this individual, Stephen, knows how to read and write in syntax, identifies himself to be a fact, his mother and father to be a fact, who created him as a fact, and he has 2 witnesses who also have claims to the life, which are facts, to certify and notarize this document that it is a fact.
Right.
And only a fact can notify a fact. And anytime you have 3 people that don't have a claim of the life and you want to make one, AB certifies C. 2 always certify 1. That rule is as old as writing. And AC certifies B and BC certify A. And that's how you get to have a claim of the life through spontaneous combustion.
And what that has to do with the 5 plus 5 equal 9?
It has to do with the fact that we are several people coming together on a contract, but it is one contract, not 2 contracts. There is a continuance of evidence, better known as corporation. This is a corporation entity now.
Now, just you're looking for further evidence of you being dead? There you
Once,
go.
yes.
All the proof you need's in there.
Oh, the phone book.
That 5 plus 5 equal 9. Well, I won't be sleeping tonight.
See, you're going over here like this, and you're going down here, which is this. When the 2 of them come together, they overlay each other. And you have 1 point here and 1 point here, which is the center of the cube, or the mass. And when you put them together, they both occupy the same space, creating 1. That's how the government takes marriage and turns it into 1 for taxation purposes. That a husband and wife are married. Boyfriend and girlfriend are still 5 plus 5 equals 10, and are treated as separate entities. Once they get married and they become the 1 under contract, because the marriage contract unifies them, then the government treats them, if one gets damaged, the other one's responsible, and vice versa. If one does something wrong, they're both guilty.
Say 5 plus 1 equals 9?
5 plus 5 equals 9.
9.
Because it's one entity now. It's this entity here, the center of both, that becomes 1, because 2 objects can't occupy the same space at the same time.
Why 9?
Because I got 5 here and 5 here, and when I put them together, you've got 4 points on the outside of your triangle and 1 point in the middle, correct? And when you put the 2 points together, the 2 inside points overlay each other and can't occupy the same space. Therefore, there's only 9 points. 1 is dissolved because they come together, called unity or marriage. And 5 plus 5 equals 9 in quantum physics. That's why this is a quantum communication program. It deals with contract.
Because of the overlay of the 2 points and the only
Exactly. And the whole world, every government functions on the same rules and regulations, including the post office. And all the Masons have used this technology since the beginning of Masonry 8,500 years ago. That's why marriage has always been insisted upon by all cultures, all governments worldwide. It's boys and girls, you know.
My question sort of goes back to earlier on in the day when you were talking about Rothschild. Now, when you say that he sort of is allowing it to come into existence because it's going to make him more money, is it also the fact that if he's going to make more money, he's allowed to, or him and the elite are allowed to keep the money they've already made by doing the wrong thing, but they now become protected with this new language, you know, and they can also make more money off the money they get to keep without ever being brought to justice on what they've done?
The machine started a long time ago, okay? We're going to go back in history. For 6,000 years, everything that went from China to Europe, because the Americas weren't involved with paper money, dealing with contract, gold, silver, bartering with different silks and blankets and everything else, everything went through Istanbul, which was Persia. The Persians went ahead and captured, through taxation of going through their country, money for 6,000 years. When the Vatican came into being in 79 AD, they went ahead and they borrowed money from Persia to build the Catholic religion and the Catholic Church. That's why you have Persian architecture on all the churches. I'm a key master, and so is Russell Gould. We are the only two key masters worldwide, because we are the syntax, mathematical syntax correct individuals which are under contract with the Vatican to translate and syntax the Bible and all their symbolizations that they have, and do it through mathematics. We know the secrets. And that's a whole different area of seminar information on a need-to-know basis.
Okay.
And deals with banking too, and international trade agreements and treaties with the UN and other countries. The history then moves forward from 79 AD to 1750. The Rothschild family goes to Persia and they borrow money. They never paid it back. 1800 comes along, and Rothschild, through passenger pigeons, controls all the banking in the 5 capitals of Europe. And through passenger pigeons, nobody knows how they're doing it, because they keep this as a family secret for 50 years, transport information back and forth, and so they got 80% of all banking in Europe is locked up with the 5 brothers. Then Napoleon comes along, and Napoleon is goes up against Cromwell at Waterloo. Rothschild knows by passenger pigeon 2 hours before Napoleon when he's defeated, knows that the London Stock Exchange is everything is being traded, currently trading at about 10 cents on a dollar. Then word comes that Napoleon won, and it drops to 2 cents on a dollar, but Rothschild knows that Napoleon lost.
Yep.
So he goes ahead and he buys up 80% of everything. Beg, borrow, cheat, and steal, and he buys up everything on margin. And when the news is announced 2 hours later that the war is over, the stock market jumps 500% instantly, and he becomes the richest man in the world. And then he says to everybody, you can have all the money you want, but you're going to separate the prepositional phrase into adverb verb, which means all contracts are destroyed. He never pays back Persia. So England now, this goes along from 1800 for 100 years. And of course the interest is accumulating, and along comes Lawrence of Arabia. Peter O'Toole made the movie, Lawrence of Arabia. But what you don't know is the classified document as to who Lawrence of Arabia was. He was a secret agent to go in and break up Persia. Became Turkey, Iran, Iraq, the Arab Republic, Dubai, and all those areas. And Persia got broke up because they wanted to go in there and get the notes. They didn't get the notes. 1973 comes along, we have the Persian Gulf War. You go in there with our big bombers and blow up things, trying to get the Notes? They didn't get the notes then either. We're back over there again, still looking for the notes. Persia's still sitting, or the Iran, now it's in Iran. And we're not Iran, but Iraq. No, Iran. Iran's holding the notes right now. They've already stripped. Now they figured it out that everything's being held in Baghdad. The notes are. But to go to war with Iran would be kind of stupid because it's 4 times bigger than Iraq. And Russia isn't going to allow that to take place. It's one thing to where it's at now, but India and Russia, that's too close. You got Pakistan, we're in Afghanistan. The resources of the world are kind of running thin. The war is not accepted. Quantum language is disqualifying all the lies that are taking place. The secrets of the manipulation and conspiracy theories are coming out through these programs that have been advertising with forensic evidence and proof. So the notes are still there, and Persia has a 250-year interest compounded, which is about $1,000 trillion right now against the entire English world. So if the notes are ever published, it could cause somewhat of a global problem.
Right.
So there's your motivation right there. Okay, this is your title. In the contract states it's DI, which is original, strict is jurisdiction, court of the Australian territory. TER is Terra. ORY is contract. So that's how this is the title you put on your paperwork. When you file in the United States District Court, it means United is no citizen, States, District is demon god of the underworld for trickery in a closed area called court. You make a presumption and you're going to be tricked. And when you file this, they're going to go ballistic on you, but this is where you're at. This is the correct title. Don't forget, what you put on your paperwork is the contract of what the court is going to be. If you want to call it a demon god court, you're going to be treated like a trick. You're going to be denied things. And if you use the correct sentence structure, you're going to get correct sentence structure. Truth in, truth out. Fiction in, fiction out. That's another statement. You guys have all your adhesive contracts you've made since you were 18 years old are in adverb, verb, fiction. You believed and gave value to that fiction because you were entered into commercial, used money to give it value. And your contract has proved that that illusion you gave value to, whether it be a mortgage, a car payment, your driver's license, marriage contracts, divorce contracts, all these things, fiction in, fiction out. You can't change boats in the middle of the stream. You're going to fall in the water. So now that you learn syntax, you can go back and you can write correct sentence structure, communication, syntax contracts. And when you enter into those are legitimate. One of my, I used to have a real estate company for 26 years. I bought and sold homes, did renovations and stuff. I have 3 PhDs right now, 535 college credits. I'm a little overeducated in a lot of things. Went to college, full-time college for 17 years. The contracts that we created, or my mortgage contracts I wrote myself. They're 2 pages long, and they are totally in syntax. And when the people who wanted to buy the houses didn't understand it, they would take it to a lawyer. And the lawyer would say, if you don't want this house, I'll buy it. This is a real contract. And just to get his hands on a real contract, he knew what he could do with it. He could sell the information to other real estate companies, as well as write quantumized language to get into private business. Now, you guys are probably all focused on how this thing is going to affect in court. When you get into corporate writing, corporate charters, you're not in a court system. Corporation to corporation, writing treaties, trusts, and contracts for corporate international banking. Right now, we've got several programs running under international banking, which are in their 10th year right now. So when you get into, we're trying to get the entire planet. We have treaties with 82 countries right now in quantum banking. We have a 117-page quantum bank trust that I served at the United Nations with the embassies. And I have my ambassadorship comes from both the syntax of the language. I'll explain that to you now. When I got my ambassadorship the first thing I did was I captured the flag of America by syntaxing the definition of the flag. I then challenged the Congress, the Senate, the legislature, and the Supreme Court of the United States for anybody to have the correct sentence structure, communication syntax, oath of office, to be who they are in that department, and to come forward with the representation to defend the flag of the United States of America. Nobody showed up after the 10-day rule and the United Nations, because I was the first person to quantize the definition correctly in now time of the flag. I now own the patents to the flag of the United States of America. When Obama took office, the flags that flew behind him in the White House were 1 to 2.25. The constitutional flag that I copyrighted is 1 to 1.9. That was the flag of the United States since 1906. And when I went ahead and I captured it, the United States then took and made all flags yellow fringe. So they went ahead and they said, the post office, all yellow fringe flags worldwide, you even have your British yellow fringe flag, those are postal flags. You work for the post office or you're in postal jurisdiction under the port authorities when you see those. So when I got that, then they said, well, if you have a flag, you must have a country, and a country has to have a constitution. We supplied them with a syntax constitution, the same ones that are up on the internet right now. And then they said, well, you have a constitution, a flag, and there's 2 or more people, and you're on the gold standard. What country do you declare? I declare the land of the courtroom during time of contract, which has never been claimed by any country in the history of mankind. And it's because I was the first person to have the correct sentence structure for the definition of the laws, rules, regulations, and description of what a courtroom is, knowing that it does not exist as a geographical room, but the paper that holds the words of the contract. That is the courtroom. That's why 9 out of 10 of your cases are solved under summary judgment when you file your lawsuit. And the judge makes a determination without you being in court. Because it's the paper is the court. The paper has all the names on. The paper is the United States. And knowing all these different facts and where things are supposed to belong, the United Nations voted 199 to nothing that I own the flag, that I am a sovereign, that I have an ambassadorship as the correct sentence structure, communication syntax country, better known as the Unity States of our World Corporation. And Jeff Skiba and I, because it's 2, make corporate. Because we're in a corporate world as corporate, and we are in fact with one gold ounce, we're now on the gold standard. But we don't have to pay the $1.6 million a year membership fee for the United Nations. We have standing at the UN. The reason we don't have to pay that is because all money is fiction, and we're a fact. And the fact and the fiction can never meet. In front of the UN building in New York City, there are 200 flags. There is one, Title IV, not Title IV, that's what we used to call it, but now it's the correct sentence structure communication syntax flag, measures 1 to 1.9, and there are 199 3x4 military boat flags to represent vessels in dry dock of a foreign country at the UN building. Now, when you go in front of all of the UN embassies, and there's separate compartments over in the different hotels that surround the UN building where they have their embassies, they all fly yellow fringe flags with spears on top and gold braids, which means they're under maritime military bankruptcy or is a military issue. And of all the ambassadors I spoke with, not one of them knew what their flags meant. And when they saw how many different flags they had, one down in the foyer, one outside the building, one in their office, they didn't know what they meant. It's kind of embarrassing that you're ambassador of a country and you don't even know what your own flag means.